Has anyone ever gone with a prostitute? How did you end up there and do you regret it? I have. But it wasn't intentional. I was out clubbing and bar hopping and a really hot girl approached me and started talking to me. But pretty quickly asked me if I wanted some company tonight. I didn't realize that was code for I'm a prostitute. Do you want my services? Brought her back to my place, and then she told me her price. I was shocked and explained I didn't know she was a lady of the night, that I thought she was just a random girl who wanted some fun. She asked me how much cash I had and would give me a discount since she wasn't clear. I said $40 and we got it on. I don't regret it. She was hot. She was rather goth, which I was into. So it was all good. She just wanted some fun or something cause. Yeesh. Only $40? Well, this was over 20 years ago. But she originally asked me for $100. But I only had $40. So it was either leave or take the $40 and do it quick. Which we did. Back in like 2015 I saw an ad on Craigslist for charity bangs. At the time I really enjoyed her acting skills, and she was only asking $300 for an hour or something, so I thought, why not? We met at a Starbucks and it really was charity bangs. I was nervous as duck. It was my first time paying for it. She took me to her room in a hotel nearby and asked me to leave the donation in the bathroom. She came out naked and she started kissing me. Up to that point I hadn't been with a girl with implants before, and when I felt them, they were hard as a rock. Then I noticed all the bruises on them and on her thighs. All I could think about were all the other dudes that had probably been there before me. My big dig melted like ice cream on a hot day. I was embarrassed and explained my embarrassment, and how it was my first time doing something like this. Blah blah. She was super sweet about it. We just hung out the rest of the time and talked. I learned that day that I couldn't be a porn star and I didn't like paying for sex. Yes. First experience. I saw the most beautiful prostitute in the red light district in Amsterdam. Walked past but couldn't stop thinking about her. Unfamiliar with the area, I then spent over an hour trying to find her again. Once I found her, I went in and discussed price, etc. I stripped off. She got on the bed and asked if I wanted a nail massage. I thought this was a little aperitif and so agreed. She's then proceeded to ram her finger up my arse and started vigorously thrashing it about. I'd never had anything shoved up my arse and did not like this sensation one bit. I told her to stop and can we move on to 6. She then got hissed off and acted as if I wanted that instead of 6. Once we'd straightened that out, she started to wank me off to get me hard. All this stress had left me unable to get fully hard, so acting hissed off again, she told me that 6 is impossible, and she will give me hand relief while hovering over my head. Once this was over and I got out of there, within 15 minutes I started to get a burning cystitis feeling where I felt I needed to pee, but I was lost in the city. I spent the next 2 hours wandering around in agony trying to find my hotel, and the next hour on the toilet trying to squeeze about 2 ml of piss out my bladder. 0 out of 10. Was in Amsterdam. Had an Airbnb right by the red light district. My friends helped me pick her out. It was awkward though. I'd much rather sleep with a woman who likes me over a prostitute. Yeah. I walked the red light district several times. And there were some hotties for sure, but I felt too weird to indulge. Similar to another top comment. I have, and it wasn't intentional, however she paid me in the end of it. I was out at a karaoke bar in Vegas with my cousin. She good-looking girl comes up to me and was like, "Buy me a drink." I was a little intoxicated as well, so I said, "Duck it." "Why not?" Let me back up a little. Prior to going out to this karaoke bar, me and my cousin got the spiciest Thai food that night, and man, my stomach was not happy with me, but I still went out anyway. Now fast forward to buying that drink. This girl gets a double vodka something and just straight chugs this drink. I was like, damn, she isn't messing around. She looks at me and goes, wanna go to my place or yours? I figured if I said yes to hers I'd wake up without a kidney, so I said mine. We go back to my hotel and get it on. She immediately starts eating my ass. This is the first time anyone's done this, and I was thinking, man, with what I ate tonight she's a trooper, but I'm drunk so I'm not gonna say anything, haha. We continue on and start having sex. And this is about the last thing I remember. I'm pretty sure she roofied me while going for my ass, because I wake up the next morning all tucked into my bed, and I guess at some point my cousin came back to the room. I look over, he's asleep in the bed next to me, and I'm waking up still very drunk or drugged, and the girl's gone. I immediately look for my wallet, cause that's what I assume is gone. Well, my wallet's moved and all my credit cards are gone as I suspected. I instantly look at my bank account and notice there's $2,000 in charges at a nearby casino. I call my bank instantly and get this poor young girl. I'm still drunk, so I tell her everything and all the details of what took place and what led up to it. She responds with, "Sir, no one would make this story up, and we will refund you the money instantly." And no shit, after I hang up the phone I look at my bank account and the money was in the refund process. I'm fairly certain they used this as a training recording for their call center, lol. Anyways, fast forward a little bit, me and my cousin are starting to get ready for the day and he goes, "Hey, were you playing slots in XXX casino tonight?" I was like, "Nah, why?" And he was like, "There's a $100 voucher in the bathroom." Well, no shit, this girl left her casino voucher in my bathroom and I cashed that sheet, so all in all I made $100 that night and got refunded everything from my bank, so I think I got paid that night. I once did. It was a response to discovering my wife's affair with a colleague. Seeking revenge, I visited a professional. Given our years of unsatisfactory intimacy, I felt justified. The experience was surreal, filled with nerves and adrenaline. I hadn't slept the night before. Meeting her, young and compassionate, I found solace in our conversation. She listened, comforted, and we eventually engaged in brief intimacy. Overall, it was oddly relieving. She was the epitome of professionalism and kindness. I've never repeated the experience, preferring to cherish it as a unique memory. Last year, while I was traveling solo in Europe, got drunk one night, did some window shopping in the red light district in Brussels, negotiated the price, then got it on. She was smoking hot, but the sex wasn't great or anything. If you're just looking to get your rocks off and nothing else, give it a go. Kind of. I went into the back room with a girl at a strip club and got a BJ. It just made me realize I have less than zero interest in being sexual with people I don't know. A valuable bit of insight about myself, but an uncomfortable lesson to learn. I had a friend who got into the lifestyle. She was a mess. Emotionally. She was hella smart and articulate. Never asked her how she got into it. I never cared. She got healed by a client one day. I was heartbroken. A bit more about us is that we spent a lot of time together. Yes, we had sex. Quite a bit. We would play dice and cards. We would lay around and talk about crazy shit. We would also go watch the Red Wings. At Joe Louis. I could honestly say that I did love her. And I believe she did me as we all. I never regretted being with her. I only wish that I would have tried harder to stay with her. She was good people. And despite her lifestyle, I cared more about her than what she did. I feel like I dropped the ball. There was a time in my life where I was so goddamned lonely I really thought I was going to. I was in Southeast Asia, where the women aggressively throw themselves at foreigners for prices cheaper than a fancy dinner. I was struggling with self-love, depression, and feeling a loneliness so heavy it was suffocating. I felt ugly, unwanted, even though I was choosing to be celibate for a time to work out some issues in me. I still felt guilty somehow. In Cambodia, one sex worker touched my arm so gently and said, "I see you are a sad man. I can make you feel better." I declined, But after I walked a block further, I just wept like a child. How deeply did I want to say yes, believing that she would make everything better, but I knew that wasn't true. And I knew that after I paid her and she left, I would feel even more alone than before. There were several nights where I really thought I was gonna do it, but I never did. Was on Tinder as usual. Bored and horny. We match, and she comes clean that she's a working girl and charges $__. I figured duck it. She was hot and seemed like a normal person. And she literally lived 5 minutes from me. I don't like the saying, well, all men pay for it in some way, as I think that's a dig at women from most men I've heard it from. But honestly, her price was equal to or less than the cost of what I would have spent taking her out to eat trying to get her the regular way. 6 was awesome. Afterwards, I guess she clocked that I'm somewhat a normal person myself, and we just got to talking. I ended up asking her about and learning a lot about 6 work that day. She actually seemed to really enjoy the lifestyle she chose for herself. Said that she would probably eventually stop, but she's also found men in the past that are 100% okay with dating her knowing what she does, normal, attractive, mid to high income men. She showed me pictures. Not whatever stereotype you think of a guy that would be okay with that. After we chatted for a bit, I said I should get going. She offered to let me shower and stay longer if needed, but I declined. She then offered to smoke me out, which I did not decline. Not gonna lie. It was a slight self-esteem boost. Most working girls would want the guy gone ASAP was my assumption. We chatted a bit more, made out, and then I left. She let me know to hit her back up if I ever wanted her services again, but also if I ever just wanted to hang out. We've hung out a couple times since then, but I haven't paid for anything since the first encounter. Honestly, if it wasn't for the shoddiness and creepiness usually coming from both sides, and if there were more normal, less sketchy women doing it, I would probably seek it out on occasion. I have never had trouble getting laid, and I'm in a relationship now where we have great 6 all the time. So please don't think I only enjoyed it because I couldn't get anything else. It was fun, hassle-free, and we both got what we wanted out of it, and went about our day after. I lived in Germany from 2000 to 2004, and between relationships I would go into Prague and party a lot. There was one bar that was kind of a cave in a hillside. Exposed rock and everything. And the 6 workers around there were October 10th. They were all insanely beautiful and really good at their jobs. I would start the evening there and get a BJ before I would go out and party that night. It was always great, and some of the most insanely beautiful people I have ever seen naked. It would relieve my early 20s sexual drive, and it would always make the night more relaxed and enjoyable. This was all adults working a career, and very good at their jobs. I did one time. Never again. It was not a good experience. I was young, in the army, and fresh out of basic training. Like the first weekend we were allowed off base, I think. I was single, living in Georgia, and didn't know anyone. I was so drunk, and a guy I had met in basic who had the same MOS comes up to me with 2 girls and tells me they want to party with us. I remember getting like $60 out of an ATM, and the 4 of us going to a hotel room. I was nearly blackout drunk. I know I had issues getting hard. I was wearing a condom, and I remember the girl trying to give me a BJ with the condom on and thinking how that must taste bad. LOL. I did duck her with my sort of flaccid big dig, but I never finished, and I'm sure it did nothing for her. The 4 of us were in the same hotel room, but we were on different beds, and I remember faking finishing because the guy I was with had finished, and they were awkwardly watching me. That was like 20 years ago. I don't even remember what the girl looked like. I couldn't even tell you her ethnicity. This is close to what can only be described as sexually assaulting yourself. You got yourself blackout drunk, then went and had 6 you didn't even want to have. Picked one up for a threesome with my girl right after I graduated college. She was worried about finding someone who we wouldn't have to talk to after, but curious about the experience. Kinda surprised I had to scroll down so far for this. Thinking about hiring one for the same reason. I spent a good buck on. Worth it. Was added on as a regular thing throughout that relationship. Just needed a pro to help get her over the hump of her anxiety. No, but I was once paid for 6. Some random cougar picked me up in a bar and asked me to her room. We got down to it, and had a pretty good time. She was very appreciative, and when we'd done I tried cuddle, but she upped and started to go to the bathroom. As she did, she reached for her purse, pulled out £200 and told me to tell the barman he was right and to duck off now. I dabbled with a few back in the day. I was in a bad place emotionally. Only ever with one girl for 8 years and she passed away. My buddies and I went to Vegas and I ended up chatting up a really nice and extremely hot girl at a bar, and of course she was a prostitute. First time in 2 years I was interested in a girl and was horny. So duck it. Took her to our suite at the Palms, the one with a basketball court in it, and she asked if I wanted her to invite a friend for a threesome. Duh. Cost me $2,000. Plus about another grand in Drew Gus and alcohol, and probably expelled a quart of semen that evening. I was also on ecstasy, so it was absolutely euphoric. We were snorting Molly and coke off all each other's body parts. Ain't never had sex like that before. Then back home we were at a strip club and I fell hard for a cute little blonde girl named Camille. We ended up seeing each other a lot. By the end she wasn't charging me money and it was starting to feel like a relationship, so I bolted because I was starting to get jealous and anxious about her job. She had the perfect butthole. Is what I remember best about her. I ended up marrying my childhood best friend when I moved back to my hometown. I was living in the city, living that wild life, and thankfully my dad came and dragged me back home when he saw the state of my apartment. Drew Gus, booze, etc. I live a pretty normal life now with my wife and daughter. Never had a girlfriend or even hook up for my entire 20s. Now in my 30s and I realized it wasn't going to happen for me naturally. So I started doing some searching and eventually jumped in. My first time was a disaster due to my nerves and a poor choice in a low-price provider. But once I knew how easy it was, I was eager to get back into the game and do it right with less nervousness. A couple of years down the track and I've crossed off a bunch of items from my bucket list. Met some amazing and hot girls and had some awesome sex. I don't regret spending the money for a second. I hired an escort to try to lose my virginity. I wasn't really attracted to her. And I was nervous. Couldn't get it up. She was nice about it, still took my money. Of course. She gave me a huge hickey. So my roommates and coworkers at least thought I had some game. I ended up losing my V the old-fashioned way. With an actual girlfriend. A few months later. Never regretted hiring the escort. Taught me the importance of having an actual connection with someone when it comes to sex. Edit wow. Been commenting and occasionally posting for 15-ish years. And got more upvotes in the last 48 hours than all that crap combined. Neat. Wish I had more grimy, yet wholesome anecdotes. Thanks everyone. Went 3 times this year and don't plan on stopping. I made my peace that I'm not comfortable enough right now to have a girlfriend. I don't feel any shame. Also, if there will be a girlfriend in the future, I'd have some experience. The second time already went so much better than the first one. Also, it's my motivation to keep working out. Yes, I was in Germany and in the Navy. It's legal there, so the women are clean and have a STD card, plus they won't even touch you without a condom on. No, I don't regret it because I was 19. It was fun and my chief paid. I hired one once at the old Mustang Ranch outside Reno. I had won some money in a casino that day. I was there alone. And it seemed like a fun way to spend some of my winnings. In those days, the 1980s, you could drive out to the ranch in 20 minutes from downtown Reno and it was all perfectly legal. I was let in by the doorman and took a seat at the bar. After a while, a very pretty, freckled redhead chatted me up. We made a deal for some action. She took me back to her sad little private room, had me undress and checked my junk very thoroughly for any signs of STD. She was a very sweet and willing girl, and we tried all sorts of different things. When it was all over, she let me shower off in her bathroom, and we said goodbye. I never saw her again. A couple times. Once in Victoria, BC, I called a service and she came to my room. Bought some IDOWR from her when we were done. Once in Amsterdam. That was just walking through the red light district and window shopping. However, the 6th was like going to McDonald's. And I did not take my socks off. One time in Vegas I called multiple services, different phone numbers, but the same person answered every time, and tried to negotiate a deal. It did not work, but the lady on the phone was super cool. No regrets, but that kind of 6 is not for me. For me, the best 6 involves emotions. I was living in China, on a long streak without masturbation. Just broke up with my GF. Traveling around the country, staying in B-tier hotels, you find these business cards with phone numbers on them on the floor, like someone slipped them under the door. I didn't think they were real, but I called one and an attractive young woman showed up 20 minutes later. It was fun. Felt dirty and confused after. 1,100 renminbi. Several months later I was walking around Hong Kong at night. Couldn't sleep. Just admiring the city. On a rather quiet street, this guy sitting on the steps of a building called me over to light his smoke. And said, "Hey sailor." Chinese girl inside. "You want to try?" It had been a while since I had 6. So I did. 500 Hong Kong dollars. Also felt dirty and confused after. Basically I tried it twice. For science. It was fun during the act. Made me feel bad about myself afterwards both times. I still flirt with the idea sometimes when I'm in a long dry spell. It's easy when I'm real horny to forget how wrong it feels afterwards. I went to a brothel when I was backpacking through Australia. I was staying at this gross little hostel in Sydney. Across the street was this Asian brothel. I was traveling alone. 24. Single. I don't have bad luck with women, but I think curiosity got the best of me. I went up to the door. It had a buzzer and a massive camera staring at you upon arrival. I buzz. Someone answers and lets me in. This very nice Korean man greeted me, shook my hand, offered me water, and told me to take a seat in the waiting room while he prepared the women. It was all happening very quickly and I didn't really feel comfortable, but I was just kind of going with it. One by one. This host guy is individually bringing these Asian women out like it's a goddamn game show. Making them do spins for me. Blowing kisses. Wearing like costumes and lingerie. Some completely naked. It was so weird but also pretty funny, so I continued to go along with it. After about 6 or 7 different women, he asked me which one I wanted. I chose contestant number 3. She was this little pocket rocket with massive fake tits and 2 pistols tattooed on her, as with the tips of the barrels connecting on her butthole. It was pretty neat. The host straight up gives me a menu like you'd see in a fine dining restaurant with all the prices. Starting at $50 for a massage with a happy ending. 6 with or without condom. NAL. Pegging. This menu had everything. It was very detailed. It was also my first time ordering 6, so I thought I would just go for the cheapest option. The massage itself was dog's hit. My back was legitimately hurting and I thought it would be nice but not the place to go for physio, I guess. She then turns me over and gives me a very old up handy. I have never got just a handy before. But this lady was a pro, and that sheet straight up made my toes curl. I paid for an hour. After everything was done we still had a few minutes left. As I was getting my stuff, the lady and I were kinda making chit-chat. She mentioned that she works like 16-hour days. 7 days a week. She told me she wasn't living there legally but makes well over $200,000 and sends most of that money back home for her family and relatives. It was a weird, almost wholesome moment after she literally just jerked me off. A complete stranger. I walked out the room with a bit of shame. All I hear from down the hall is some guy clapping cheeks at the speed of a jackhammer, and some lady moaning in correspondence. I kind of chuckle to myself and start walking back down the stairs. I had to give way to this other dude walking up with one of the other ladies. Contestant 5. I believe. This guy was absolutely pumped, and as he went by we made eye contact. He then goes for a high five and says, "Isn't this great?" I could see genuine happiness in his face. I felt like this dude legitimately valued these women and are really key pieces to his happiness. So I followed through with the high five and said, "Yeah dude, it's pretty cool." I thought the experience as a whole was funny, weird, exciting, and pretty insightful to be honest. I was also surprised with the cleanliness of the establishment itself. You could tell that the sheets were new. The floors were vacuumed. It was like a cheap hotel. That being said, I wouldn't go again. But I'm also only 31 and in a relationship now. I can see the value in that service for people that might struggle dating, or are socially awkward. All in all, 6.5 out of 10. Was in Amsterdam for a friend's 21st, and another friend of mine was a virgin. Pretty awkward guy. Had a GF previously but nothing sexual. And we talked him into just getting it over and done with at the red light. Locals had told us earlier that day not to pay more than 50. Apparently that was a pretty standard price. Anyway, apparently he goes in and just hands her 50 without talking about what he wanted, and just expected 50 to get him 6. Well, he'd already given her the money, and she said she'd give him head only. He argued and this insulted her, and her offer went to a handy. To him wanking in front of her. He left, and told us that she basically just robbed his money, and we approached the window/door to see what was up. We were all basically told to duck off. Which we did. Not much we could do really. I look back and laugh. Not sure my friend feels the same way. I was 21 and went out for a drink one night in Pacific Beach. Got to chatting with a fella whose friend had just died. He said they used to go to Mexico to party every weekend and asked if I wanted to go. 1 hour later I was bribing a Mexican border agent to let me skip the customs line, and next thing I know I'm pounding out some Mexican who are at a place called Hong Kong in Tijuana. Only regret is going with the first girl that approached me, as there were way hotter women around later in the night. The dude ended up getting all drunk and not wanting to leave. I ran out of money and had to beg cab drivers for a ride back to the border at 4 a.m. Overall great experience. I have been to a few massage parlors and have had a great time with that also. Might go to one for my birthday this weekend. I have, but it wasn't the plan for the night. Was an off-the-cuff decision. Don't regret it at all. I was 18 and exploring. It was a safe space where it all took place, nothing seriously dodgy/shady about it. Was a good laugh with my friend. My first time was with a prostitute. She was also very nice. I was maybe 21. And wanted to just get it over with. So I went on to the now defunct Backpage.com. And found an escort near Joliet. $120. And a half hour later. And I was done. For me, I go on both sides of whether or not I regret it. After I went my first time, I started to frequent escorts more often. Eventually branching out to Asian massage parlors that offer happy endings that ranged from handies all the way up to full-blown 6. I had my fun. But spent a lot of money. I also wonder if it ever hampered me though in getting a significant other until a few years ago when I met my now wife. Though seeing escorts and amp girls gave me a confidence boost in myself. Ha! This describes me well. Dealt with self-esteem issues and ended up losing my virginity to a massage parlor girl. Ended up dabbling in that hobby for the better part of 6 to 7 years before ending up in a long-term relationship where I'm at now. It was an expensive hobby. But man, I loved it. Just spending $200 for a drop-dead gorgeous Asian girl, most of the time, was addicting. I always loved Asian women in particular, so I was having the time of my life. It truly helped me develop confidence to get laid on my own. Still paid my favorite spots a visit every now and then, but haven't gone since coming off the market. If I ever become single again, a visit to my favorite place would be overdue.